You are not poor because of your circumstances. You are limited only by the stories running in the deepest layers of your mind. Change those stories, and wealth begins to move toward you with magnetic certainty. Wealth is not created outside of you. It is summoned from within. Your subconscious mind is the silent architect of your financial life, shaping every opportunity, every idea, every limitation, and every breakthrough. Today, you will learn how to reprogram it for wealth, so your outer world finally reflects your inner intention. Claiming wealth as your inner reality is not about forcing yourself to believe something unrealistic. It is about understanding that your outer world is a projection of your dominant internal state. When you decide that wealth is the truth of your being, even before any evidence appears, you alter the foundation from which your experiences emerge. Most people wait for money to show up before they feel abundant, secure, or worthy. But this approach reverses the true order of creation. The feeling must come first, the acceptance must come first, the inner identity must come first. Only then does the world reorganize to reflect what you have already chosen within. You begin by withdrawing your attention from the circumstances that seem to contradict the life you desire. Your current situation is nothing more than the residue of past assumptions. It does not define you unless you continue feeding it with belief. When you shift focus from what is happening to what you have claimed internally, you stop living reactively and start living creatively. The world loses its power over you. Instead, you become the source of power that shapes the world. Wealth as an inner reality is not a fantasy. It is a state of being in which you deliberately choose thoughts, feelings, and assumptions that match the financial life you wish to experience. You mentally relocate yourself into the version of you who lives with ease, comfort, and plenty. You imagine this version of yourself not as a goal to chase, but as a truth you inhabit. The subconscious responds to this identity with absolute obedience. Once it accepts a new sense of self, your actions begin to flow effortlessly from it. Your intuition sharpens. Your decisions align with growth instead of fear. You notice opportunities you once overlooked. You have the courage to act where you previously hesitated. Nothing appears forced. Instead, life feels guided. This internal claiming is not about pretending or repeating empty phrases. It is about adopting a deep knowing that wealth belongs to you because you have chosen it as your state of consciousness. When you stop waiting for external validation and decide that abundance is already yours inwardly, you send a clear instruction to your subconscious. That instruction becomes the blueprint it uses to construct your future experiences. The world begins echoing the truth you hold within. Small shifts occur at first. Unexpected ideas, renewed confidence, clarity of direction. Then larger changes follow. Financial opportunities, improved relationships with money, new pathways that open without strain. Every time you return to the inner state of wealth, you reinforce your new identity. You detach from the old self who struggled, worried, or doubted. That version of you dissolves the moment you withdraw your attention from it. You cannot inhabit two identities at once. You must choose which one you will be loyal to, the self limited by current circumstances, or the self enriched by the inner truth you have claimed. The more consistently you occupy the state of abundance, the more naturally it becomes your default state. The shift does not require force. It requires willingness. Willingness to stop measuring yourself by the numbers in your bank account. Willingness to stop interpreting temporary setbacks as permanent truths. Willingness to see yourself as the source of wealth rather than the seeker of wealth. When you adopt this internal position, you discover that the world mirrors your assumptions in ways that feel almost effortless. You move differently. You speak differently. You think differently. You no longer chase money. You attract it because your inner state signals that you already possess it. Wealth in its truest form is an expression of consciousness. When you claim it inwardly, you elevate your self-perception. You begin to expect support from life rather than hardship. You anticipate solutions instead of problems. This expectation shapes everything around you. people respond to you differently. Circumstances align more smoothly. Ideas flow with greater ease. You start to experience the world as a cooperative force rather than an obstacle course. Claiming wealth internally also frees you from fear. Fear of losing money, fear of not having enough, fear of opportunities passing by. These dissolve because they belong to the old identity, not the new one. The self who already possesses wealth does not question whether money will come. It assumes its arrival as natural. This assumption is what activates the subconscious to produce the corresponding outer results. Life always rises to meet the state you hold within. If you stand in the consciousness of abundance, life brings evidence of abundance. If you stand in the consciousness of lack, life brings evidence of lack. The choice is always yours. When you fully claim wealth as your inner reality, you stop living as someone who is trying to become wealthy and begin living as someone who already is. This is the turning point. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer hoping. You are no longer negotiating with circumstances. You are embodying the identity that carries wealth naturally. From this state, creation becomes inevitable. Money appears through channels you never predicted. Assistance arrives at the perfect time. Ideas that once seemed out of reach become clear and actionable. The outer world shifts because you have shifted. To claim wealth as your inner reality is to accept that you are the origin point of your financial life. Everything begins within you. Everything expands from you. Once you assume the identity of someone who lives in abundance, the world confirms your assumption with precision. You are not chasing money. You are becoming the one who naturally draws it. Your subconscious does not judge or analyze. It simply accepts whatever is impressed upon it with feeling, repetition, and intensity. This is why the stories you rehearse internally shape your financial destiny more powerfully than any external effort. Most people remain trapped in cycles of struggle, not because life is unfair, but because the dominant script running inside them is one of limitation, scarcity, and unworthiness. To reprogram your subconscious for wealth, you must deliberately replace those old, inherited stories with beliefs that support abundance, expansion, and possibility. Begin by recognizing that every thought repeated with conviction becomes a kind of instruction. If you constantly speak and think from a place of lack, saying things like, "Money is hard to come by," "I can't afford that," or "people like me never get ahead," the subconscious treats those statements as directives. It adjusts your behavior, filters your perception, and even influences your emotional responses to ensure your world reflects the belief you have accepted. In this way, the subconscious is always loyal to your dominant inner narrative, even if that narrative is working against you. To replace these old stories, you must first become aware of them. Pay attention to the automatic phrases that spill out of your mouth. Notice the instant reactions you have when bills arrive, when opportunities appear, or when you think about your future. These habitual responses reveal the beliefs that have been silently governing your financial experiences. Once you see them clearly, you reclaim the power to rewrite them. You shift from being a passive recipient of old conditioning to an intentional creator of a new internal reality. Replacing old stories with wealth-producing beliefs begins with choosing new thoughts that align with the financial life you desire. But it is not enough to simply say these thoughts. You must feel them. You must present them to your subconscious with the emotional tone of truth. When you speak wealth into your inner world, speak it as if it is already a fact. Say it with a calm certainty, not desperation. Your subconscious responds to conviction, to the emotional weight behind your words. If you affirm abundance while still feeling lack, the subconscious accepts the feeling rather than the phrase. But when your words and emotions align, the imprint becomes powerful and lasting. Start by saturating your mind with images of abundance. Imagine yourself handling money effortlessly, paying bills with ease, investing confidently, and enjoying the stability you desire. Let these internal visions become more real to you than your present circumstances. Do not dismiss this process as imagination or positivity. You are programming the very mechanism that governs how you perceive opportunities, how you respond to challenges, and how you interpret the world. When the subconscious absorbs these new images, it begins reshaping your actions and reactions to match them. The transformation is subtle at first. You start noticing things that were always there but previously filtered out by old beliefs. Opportunities you once overlooked, ideas that never surfaced before, resources you did not realize you had. You begin making decisions that align with confidence rather than fear. You speak about your finances differently, and your relationship with money becomes less reactive and more intentional. This is the subconscious shifting. It is no longer operating from the old script. It is adopting the new narrative you have chosen. As you continue to reinforce wealth-producing beliefs, you will feel an internal shift. Doubt loses its power. Scarcity thoughts become less automatic. You begin to recognize yourself as someone who naturally attracts and handles wealth. This identity shift is the true foundation of financial transformation. When your inner narrative changes, your behavior changes. You become more resourceful, more open, more resilient. Your intuition strengthens because you are no longer clouded by fear-based thinking. You sense which opportunities to pursue and which to ignore. You feel guided rather than lost. Opportunities begin to appear not because the world has suddenly changed, but because your subconscious is no longer sabotaging your perception of possibility. You start acting from a place of expansion rather than contraction. You take steps that previously felt intimidating. You engage with people and ideas that elevate your financial reality. The new beliefs do not magically create money out of thin air. They create the version of you who can attract, manage, and multiply it. Replacing old stories with wealth-producing beliefs is not a one-time exercise. It is a shift in inner loyalty. Each day you choose whether to reaffirm the old limitations or reinforce the new truth. The more you choose the new story, the more natural it becomes. Soon, it stops feeling like something you are trying to believe and becomes something you simply know. That is when the subconscious accepts it fully. And once it accepts, it expresses. Your outer world rises to the level of your inner transformation. When you rewrite the story within, you rewrite the life you live. The subconscious will always follow the narrative you feed it. Feed it wealth, and it will create a life that reflects abundance in ways that feel aligned, natural, and inevitable. Imagination is the workshop where your future is built long before you witness any physical evidence of change. When you engage your imagination deliberately, you give your subconscious mind a new identity to express. The subconscious does not distinguish between what you physically experience and what you vividly imagine. It simply accepts whatever you repeatedly present to it. This is why imagination becomes the most potent instrument for transforming your financial life. You are not merely daydreaming. You are constructing an inner reality that your subconscious will later compel the outer world to mirror. Begin by stepping into a financial identity that feels radically different from the one you currently inhabit. Do not imagine money as something you chase or earn. Imagine it as something that already surrounds you, something that flows toward you with ease, something that responds to you because your new identity naturally attracts it. See yourself checking your bank account and receiving notifications of deposits that exceed your expectations. Hear the sound of approval, of opportunity, of acceptance. Imagine conversations where you speak about your finances from a position of confidence and security. Feel the relief, the gratitude, the grounded certainty of someone who has stepped into a life where wealth is no longer a struggle but a steady reality. The secret is to make your imagination as sensory and emotionally rich as possible. If you only think of money abstractly, you give the subconscious nothing to work with. But if you imagine yourself walking into your home, knowing it is fully paid for, or sitting at a cafe while planning investments that serve your long-term goals, or opening a letter that confirms a debt has been completely cleared, the subconscious accepts these moments as truth. It begins to reorganize your behaviors, your decisions, your attention, and even the opportunities that appear in your environment. What feels like supernatural coincidence is simply your subconscious aligning your world to the identity you have rehearsed within. The challenge for most people is that their imagination has been trained by past experiences, disappointments, and fears. If your financial history includes struggle or scarcity, your imagination may automatically recreate those patterns. This is why you must consciously override the old images with new ones. You must become the deliberate creator of your inner world rather than a passive observer of old mental habits. Each time your mind attempts to replay a scenario of lack, gently shift your attention back to the financial identity you are building. Persist in the image of abundance, even when the outer world has not yet changed. It is your persistence that signals to the subconscious that this new identity is the one you prefer and intend to live from. The more frequently you return to this inner scene, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, the image stops feeling like imagination and begins feeling like memory. This is the turning point. When the subconscious accepts the imagined financial identity as something that has already occurred, it begins to replicate it outwardly. You may suddenly feel nudged to make a decision you had previously avoided. New ideas may come to you with unusual clarity. You may notice opportunities you once would have overlooked. These experiences are not random. They are simply the physical expression of the new identity taking form. There is immense power in adding emotion to your imagined scenes. Emotion acts as the glue that binds the image to the subconscious. A flat, emotionless picture will not imprint deeply, but an image that stirs your heart, that creates a sense of joy, relief, or certainty, will impress itself upon your subconscious with tremendous speed. Feel the pride of being financially free. Feel the relaxation of knowing you are supported. Feel the unwavering confidence of someone who has mastered the flow of money in their life. These emotions accelerate the reprogramming process and bring your imagined identity closer to expression. You are not attempting to manipulate money or force external outcomes. You are altering the state from which your life unfolds. The outer world must conform to the inner state you maintain. When you consistently imagine yourself as someone who lives in financial ease, your subconscious takes this identity as fact and begins arranging circumstances to support it. This is why imagination is not idle fantasy. It is the blueprint of your future, the seed from which your financial reality grows. Allow your imagination to be bold. You are not limited by your current circumstances, your past failures, or your present income. Imagine beyond what feels reasonable. Reason has boundaries. Imagination does not. The subconscious responds to the intensity and clarity of your inner scenes, not to the logic of your rational mind. Even if you do not know how your imagined financial life will unfold, you do not need to. The subconscious will handle the unfolding. Your role is simply to remain loyal to the inner reality you have crafted. With each session of imaginative immersion, you deepen the roots of your new financial identity. Eventually, that identity becomes so familiar, so natural, so real within you that the outer world has no choice but to rise to match it. You are not waiting for wealth, you are assuming it, embodying it, rehearsing it within the sanctuary of your own mind. And as you persist, the world bends to reflect the image you have chosen. Feel the emotion of fulfillment before it arrives, because emotion is the language your subconscious understands most clearly. Every feeling you hold, whether consciously or unconsciously, becomes an instruction. It shapes the vibration of your inner world, and that vibration becomes the mold from which your outer experience is cast. When you generate the feeling of abundance in advance, you are not pretending or playing make-believe. You are activating the state that calls wealth toward you. Money is not attracted to need, desperation, or fear. It is drawn to the energy of certainty, ease, and already having. When you feel prosperous before physical evidence appears, you are removing the psychological and energetic distance that normally stands between you and what you desire. You dissolve the idea that wealth is somewhere outside of you, waiting to be earned, fought for, or forced into place. Instead, you experience it as something that already belongs to you internally. This internal belonging is what creates external possession. If you feel poor, blocked, or deprived, your subconscious matches those feelings with circumstances that confirm them. But the moment you begin feeling wealthy, deeply, sincerely, consistently, your subconscious begins reorganizing your life to reflect that new emotional state. Feeling is the catalyst. It is the power that tells your inner mind what to construct next. Most people wait for money to appear before they allow themselves to feel relief, gratitude, or confidence. But this habit delays the manifestation because it places all emotional authority outside of you. If you make your inner world dependent on your outer world, you stay locked in the same cycle. The key is reversing the order: feel first, experience later. Let the feeling be the cause, and the manifestation be the effect. This is the shift that unlocks everything. Gratitude is one of the most potent emotional frequencies in this process. Gratitude assumes that the desire is already fulfilled. When you give thanks for wealth before it arrives, you are not lying to yourself. You are aligning with the truth that exists in your imagination. Gratitude tells the subconscious, "This is already mine," and the subconscious obeys by constructing circumstances that make it real. A grateful mind expects good. It anticipates provision. It walks with the quiet certainty that life is unfolding in its favor. This expectation becomes magnetic. Relief is another transformative emotion. Relief signals the end of struggle, the dissolution of pressure, the release of tension. When you allow yourself to feel relieved, even if nothing has changed yet, you send a message to your subconscious that the problem is already solved. It stops generating ideas and behaviors rooted in scarcity and begins producing thoughts aligned with abundance. Feeling relief shifts your energy from survival into creation. It moves you from trying to force outcomes into allowing them. Then there is certainty. Certainty is not arrogance or blind optimism. It is an inner knowing, a calm confidence that the desire is already done on the unseen level. When you feel certain, not because of evidence but because of intention, you elevate your entire state of consciousness. Certainty does not entertain fear. It does not check constantly to see whether something is working. It rests in the fact that the inner world has accepted the desire, and therefore the outer world must mirror it. Certainty is the emotional signature of fulfillment. As you practice these emotions, something remarkable begins to happen. The subconscious no longer perceives your desire as a wish or a distant possibility. It interprets it as a lived reality. And because the subconscious controls your habits, your creativity, your intuition, your responses, and even the opportunities you notice, your entire life begins shifting in the direction of that inner fulfillment. You might receive ideas you never would have considered, notice financial opportunities you previously overlooked, or find yourself meeting people who open new doors. Outer shifts are simply reflections of the inner feeling state you adopted. It is important to understand that feeling the emotion of fulfillment does not mean forcing yourself to be happy every moment. It means returning to the inner state of abundance repeatedly until it becomes your default. Whenever fear, doubt, or lack shows up, treat them as temporary visitors, not permanent truths. Acknowledge them, but do not indulge them. Redirect your emotional attention back to the reality you have chosen. Emotional discipline is part of the process. It is not about suppressing negative feelings, but about choosing the state you wish to dwell in. Practice imagining moments that naturally evoke the emotions you desire. Picture yourself checking your bank account and seeing abundance. Imagine paying bills with ease. Feel the comfort of knowing you are supported. Let your imagination feed the emotion, and let the emotion imprint the subconscious. Over time, this becomes effortless. Abundance becomes familiar, and familiarity is what the subconscious responds to most powerfully. The world you live in becomes a mirror of the feeling you hold within. When you feel wealthy internally, Life reflects wealth back to you externally. When you feel fulfilled before evidence appears, you set the stage for the evidence to emerge. Everything begins with inner feeling. Everything follows inner feeling. The moment you align emotionally with the financial reality you desire, you begin living in the cause of wealth rather than the effect of circumstances. That shift is the true beginning of manifestation. Your words are the carriers of your inner state, and every sentence you speak is a declaration of the world you believe you live in. When you speak from lack, even casually, you strengthen the very conditions you are trying to escape. You anchor them into your subconscious, giving them permission to continue. But when you speak from abundance, when your language is saturated with confidence, certainty, and sufficiency, you don't just change your mindset, you rewrite the assumptions that shape your reality. Your speech becomes the instrument through which you sculpt your financial destiny. Most people speak based on what they see, not realizing that what they see is only the echo of old subconscious impressions. They say things like, "I can't afford that," "money is tight," or "nothing ever works out for me." And then they wonder why their circumstances seem to repeat themselves. These statements are not harmless expressions of how life is. They are instructions. The subconscious hears them as commands and continues to create in alignment with them. If you proclaim limitation, limitation responds. If you declare struggle, struggle takes root. Your outer world becomes a mirror, reflecting the inner decrees you've been speaking without awareness. To speak from the state of wealth is to assume abundance as your truth, even before physical evidence appears. This is not about pretending or denying what is in front of you. It is about refusing to give your voice to a reality you no longer wish to sustain. Your words must align with the financial world you desire to inhabit. Every statement should be a reinforcement of the state you have chosen inwardly. When you say, "I always have more than enough," you shift your vibrational center from scarcity to sufficiency. When you say, "Money flows to me easily and consistently," you align your energy with the experience of abundance. When you say, "Everything I need arrives right on time," you create expectancy rather than fear. The subconscious responds to tone, intention, and repetition. When your speech consistently originates from the assumption of wealth, your subconscious begins to reorganize your beliefs, behaviors, and perceptions to support that assumption. It is impossible for your habits to remain small when your words declare expansiveness. It is impossible for opportunities to stay hidden when your language welcomes them. Your speech becomes a magnet, drawing into your life the people, ideas, and circumstances that resonate with your chosen state. Speaking from wealth also trains your nervous system to normalize abundance. The more you speak from the end state, the more natural it feels. Over time, your words stop sounding like affirmations and begin to feel like statements of fact. This shift marks the moment when your subconscious has accepted the new pattern. What once felt like a stretch becomes familiar. What once felt imagined becomes embodied. And once your subconscious accepts a belief as normal, it expresses it without resistance. There is also power in refusing to speak about lack, even when you feel it. Silence can be more potent than complaint. Every time you choose not to verbalize a fear or limitation, you weaken its influence. When you choose not to reinforce the problem with your words, you prevent the subconscious from absorbing it as truth. Instead, you redirect your attention to the financial identity you have chosen. Your silence becomes loyalty to your desired reality. Speech initiates creation. Once you claim abundance with your words, you begin to see subtle shifts in your outer world. Small opportunities appear. Unexpected resources show up. A conversation leads to an idea, and that idea leads to an opening. Each of these shifts is evidence that your words have begun to take root. They are not coincidences. They are confirmations. Your speech has activated the new state within you, and life is moving to align with it. Speaking from wealth also elevates your posture, your confidence, and your decisions. You begin to act as someone who is supported rather than someone who is struggling. You take actions that reflect trust, not fear. You invest in yourself more freely. You open doors you once believed were closed. People feel the shift in your presence because your speech carries a new level of authority. You are no longer someone trying to become abundant. You are someone who speaks as if the abundance is already yours. The transformation does not happen all at once, but with every declaration, you carve a new pathway in your subconscious mind. Each time you speak wealth into your life, you break the momentum of old patterns that kept you small. You create new expectations. You train yourself to see abundance where you once saw limitation. And as your perception shifts, your reality follows. Your voice is not just a description of your life, it is the architect of it. When you understand this, you choose your words with intention. You speak from the end, not from the middle of your journey. You speak from fulfillment, not from desire. You become the voice of the financial world you have already claimed within. And when your words and your inner state unite, nothing can prevent the physical manifestation from unfolding. Doubt is nothing more than the echo of a former version of you, a habit of thinking that has been rehearsed for so long it tries to pass itself off as truth. But doubt has no substance on its own. It gains strength only when you agree with it, entertain it, or allow it to guide your inner dialogue. The moment you stop feeding it, it weakens. The moment you withdraw your attention, it dissolves. It is not a sign that your desire is impossible. It is simply evidence that your subconscious has not yet fully accepted the new reality you are choosing. And that is why breaking the momentum of doubt is one of the most essential steps in mental transformation. Momentum is built through repetition. Every time you think a thought, you reinforce it. Every time you feel a familiar feeling, you renew it. Doubt appears because it is the momentum of your old identity trying to remain alive. It is the mind saying, "But this is how things have always been." Yet the moment you remember that you are no longer obligated to remain who you have been, the power begins to shift. You are not fighting the doubt. You are simply refusing to energize it. You break its continuity by withdrawing the attention that once sustained it. When doubt shows up, do not negotiate with it. Do not argue with it. Do not treat it as if it has authority. Simply shift your awareness back to the inner state you have chosen. This act alone reclaims your power. Doubt cannot survive when you firmly return to the feeling of the desired reality, as if it is already yours. Every time you redirect your focus, you strengthen the new state, making it more dominant than the old one. Eventually, the old patterns fade because they no longer receive the nourishment of your belief. You break doubt by choosing loyalty to the unseen reality instead of the visible one. The world you see is only the expression of your former patterns and assumptions. It is not a measure of what is possible for you. It is a reflection of what you once assumed. When you understand this, the physical world loses its authority to dictate what you believe. You stop looking to your circumstances for confirmation. You stop waiting for evidence. Instead, you commit to the truth within you, even if nothing outside has changed yet. You choose the unseen over the seen because you know the unseen is the cause and the seen is the effect. This loyalty to the unseen requires consistency, not struggle. Consistency is what trains the subconscious. It is not intensity that transforms your inner world. It is the steady return to your chosen state again and again until the subconscious accepts it as the only reality. Your mind responds to what you repeat, not what you occasionally believe. When you hold a single inner assumption with quiet certainty, it carries more creative power than endless effort soaked in fear or worry. Worry scatters energy. Faith gathers it. Doubt diffuses your focus. Assumption directs it. The subconscious does not resist your desire. It merely follows the dominant impression. If doubt is dominant, it follows that. If confidence in the unseen is dominant, it follows that instead. Breaking doubt, therefore, is not an emotional battle. It is a shift in dominance. You are teaching your subconscious which reality to express by choosing the one you consistently return to. Every time you redirect your attention from fear to fulfillment, you carve new grooves into your inner landscape. Eventually, the new state becomes natural, familiar, automatic. Doubt may attempt to rise, but it will no longer hold influence because you will no longer resonate with it. When doubt whispers, "This will not happen," respond silently with the feeling, "It is already done." When it says, "You have no proof," answer with the inner knowing that the proof begins within, not outside. When it tries to pull you back to the identity you are leaving behind, gently shift your mind into the version of yourself who already possesses the wealth, security, or success you desire. This shift is not imaginary indulgence. It is the mechanism by which your subconscious accepts a new truth. Understand that doubt does not mean you have failed. It simply indicates that you are in the process of replacing an old state with a new one. The presence of doubt is a sign that you are expanding beyond your former limitations. The key is to refuse to make doubt meaningful. Treat it as a fleeting mental habit, not an oracle. Allow it to pass without attachment, and it will lose its grip. Your task is not to eliminate doubt, but to render it irrelevant by refusing to grant it authority. Each time you return to your desired state, you break a little more of the old momentum. Each time you affirm the unseen reality as real, you strengthen your new identity. Over time, the new becomes effortless. Your subconscious accepts the revised blueprint. And once it does, the outer world begins to shift in ways that appear synchronized, purposeful, even miraculous. Doubt no longer has the power to sway you because you have learned to anchor yourself to the inner truth rather than the outer appearance. You are not shaped by the voice of doubt. You are shaped by the voice you choose to believe. And when your belief becomes unwavering, the world bends to match it. Live internally as the person who already has wealth means you stop approaching your desire as something distant and begin treating it as your present identity. The subconscious cannot distinguish between what is physically true and what is mentally accepted. It responds to who you believe yourself to be now, not who you hope to become later. So the work is simple but powerful. Assume the inner posture, feelings, and certainty of someone for whom wealth is already natural, expected, and familiar. Begin by observing how you think when you believe you are wealthy. Your thoughts are calmer, clearer. You do not approach money with fear or urgency. You do not question whether you will have enough. Instead, you experience an inner continuity of abundance, a quiet knowing that everything you need arrives in perfect time. This shift in inner thought is not forced positivity, it is alignment with the state you claim. When you live from this inner identity, you think strategically rather than reactively. You recognize opportunities instead of threats. You choose long-term decisions rather than panic-driven responses. This mental atmosphere becomes fertile ground for wealth because your subconscious adopts these thoughts as its new baseline. Next, consider how you would move through the world. If wealth already defined your reality, your posture changes. Your pace slows. You walk with a sense of assurance, not because of arrogance, but because you live in the truth of sufficiency rather than scarcity. The wealthy version of you is not hurried or tense. This does not mean you pretend. It means you inhabit the consciousness of provision. The more consistently you carry yourself from this invisible state, the more solid it becomes. Your subconscious reads that confidence as evidence and begins shaping outer conditions to harmonize with it. Then ask yourself how decisions flow from the identity of someone who already has wealth. When you feel financially secure inside, your choices come from clarity rather than fear. You do not say yes to opportunities out of desperation, nor do you reject possibilities out of doubt. Instead, you evaluate life from a grounded inner calm. You trust your intuition more because your internal state is aligned with expansion rather than contraction. Every decision reinforces the identity you have chosen. The subconscious interprets this as continuity of belief and begins orchestrating outcomes that support it. Living internally as the person who already has wealth also requires emotional discipline. This does not mean suppressing feelings. It means choosing which feelings you give authority. If lack tries to pull your attention backward, you gently redirect it to the feeling of abundance. When frustration appears, you do not collapse into it, you acknowledge it, then return to the emotional tone of the identity you have assumed. Wealth in your inner world feels like relief, stability, freedom, and expansion. Practice holding those feelings until they become your natural emotional climate. Once the subconscious accepts this emotional set point, it reflects it back through the events, people, and opportunities in your external experience. Your inner self-talk shifts as well. The wealthy version of you does not indulge in narratives like, I can't afford this, I never have enough, or money is hard to come by. Instead, the internal voice of abundance is steady and assuring. It says, things always work out for me, provision flows to me, and I am supported in more ways than I can see. You do not recite these statements to convince yourself, but to align your internal dialogue with the identity you have chosen. The subconscious hears these words as commands and reorganizes your perceptions and behaviors accordingly. As you continue to embody this inner identity, you will notice subtle shifts in your outer world. You may start making better financial choices. You may feel drawn to opportunities you once overlooked. People may respond differently to you because your energy, presence, and confidence have changed. These changes are not coincidences. They are reflections of the new pattern imprinted on your subconscious. You are no longer operating from survival mode, but from a consciousness of thriving. Living as the wealthy version of yourself also liberates you from the emotional attachments that keep you trapped in scarcity. When you accept wealth internally, you no longer chase it with desperation or cling to it with fear. You interact with money from a place of empowerment. You understand that wealth is an extension of your consciousness rather than a force outside of your control. This internal freedom allows money to circulate more easily in your life because you are no longer resisting it with thoughts of fear, doubt, or unworthiness. Eventually, the identity you create within becomes more real to you than your external circumstances. You stop measuring your progress by what you see and begin measuring it by how consistently you occupy your chosen state. This is the moment true transformation begins. Your subconscious fully adopts the new identity, and life begins to mirror it with increasing speed and precision. New opportunities emerge that align with your inner state. Unexpected financial pathways open. People who match your new frequency enter your life. The world rearranges itself because you have rearranged yourself internally. To live internally as the person who already has wealth is to recognize that your financial reality is not created by effort alone, but by consciousness. When you embody this identity with loyalty and consistency, your subconscious accepts it as truth. And once accepted, it must express that truth. You rise into a new financial identity, and everything around you rises with you, responding to the wealth that has already been claimed within. When you plant a new belief in the subconscious, you ignite a process that unfolds far beyond your conscious understanding. The moment the subconscious accepts wealth as your truth, it begins constructing a quiet sequence of events designed to carry you from your current reality into the one you have inwardly assumed. This sequence is not random. It is deliberate, intelligent, and perfectly matched to the state you now occupy within. Your only responsibility is to remain loyal to that inner state and allow the bridge of events to form beneath your feet. This bridge is rarely visible at first. It may look like small coincidences, moments of insight, or subtle shifts in your environment. You may feel drawn to new ideas, new people, or new opportunities in ways you cannot explain logically. These are not accidents. They are responses to the command you issue to your subconscious. Once the inner shift occurs, the outer world must adjust itself accordingly. That adjustment often begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, until eventually it becomes undeniable. The conscious mind, however, often wants to interfere. It wants to know how, when, through what person, or through which opportunity or desire will come. It wants to take control of the process, to force results, to push outcomes into existence prematurely. But forcing interrupts the natural flow of creation. When you try to dictate the exact route, you block the deeper intelligence that already knows the fastest, most harmonious way to bring your desire to pass. The bridge of events does not need your control. It needs your trust. Trust is not passive. It is an active decision to align with the inner reality you have chosen, even when the outer world has not yet caught up. Trust means acknowledging that something has already shifted within you, and because of that shift, the external conditions must follow. It means refusing to measure your progress by appearances. Appearances reflect only your old assumptions, not the new state you have adopted. If you evaluate the process too soon, you mistakenly assume nothing is happening, when in truth everything is happening. As you hold firm to the inner knowing that your wealth is already assured, your subconscious orchestrates opportunities you could never have planned. A conversation overheard at the right moment sparks a transformative idea. A chance encounter leads to a business partnership. A financial opening appears through a channel you never previously considered. A door closes, not because you failed, but because the path is being redirected toward something better aligned with your new identity. All of this is the bridge working for you. Sometimes the bridge of events feels uncomfortable because it requires releasing old patterns, relationships, or habits that no longer belong to your new state of wealth. You may be guided to make unfamiliar choices or step into situations that stretch your confidence. But even these moments are part of the alignment process. Your subconscious is reorganizing your behavior, your environment, and your opportunities so that your life can reflect the belief you have installed within it. What feels uncomfortable is often simply the dismantling of what no longer matches your chosen reality. Allowing the bridge to unfold requires patience, but not the passive kind. It is the patience of certainty. When you know a desire is already fulfilled inwardly, you no longer rush. You no longer worry. You no longer chase. You move with calm assurance because you understand that reality is molding itself around your assumption. This internal composure accelerates the unfolding because it signals to the subconscious that you are aligned with the end result, not the lack of it. Life always responds to the state you occupy. If you hold the state of wealth, the world brings evidence of wealth. If you hold the state of fear, doubt, or neediness, the world reflects that instead. So the key is to remain in the consciousness of fulfillment long enough for the bridge to complete itself. Every time your mind drifts into doubt or impatience, gently return it to the feeling that the outcome is already secured. This is how you maintain alignment. This is how you stay on the bridge without disrupting it. You do not have to know the mechanics of how everything will come together. You do not have to predict the timing. You do not have to recognize the bridge while it is forming. Your task is simply to maintain the inner conviction that the subconscious is already carrying out your instruction. When you do this consistently, the outer world has no choice but to reveal the wealth you have accepted within. Eventually, the bridge becomes clear. The events come together in such a seamless way that you can look back and see the precision of the entire process. You realize that every step, every delay, every unexpected turn was part of the path that brought your inner assumption into physical expression. You arrive at your manifestation not through force, but through alignment. And once you experience this process, you begin to trust it more deeply each time. You understand that the unseen is always working on your behalf, and wealth is guaranteed to flow to the mind that knows the result is already accomplished within.